Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. It's great to be with you today. And we're going to dig into a lot. Obviously, Tom Brady, depending on when you see this, is either about to be approved as a minority owner or will have been. At least that's the expectation at the time of this taping. And that's what I've heard from multiple people. So I expect it to happen. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to get into uh, navigating through the distractions. We're going to look at the Raiders from a lot of different angles. And I think that this is going to be a very informative podcast. So first, let's start with the elephant in the room, the Devante Adams situation. I broke the story last week that there was a possibility, but not a probability, that Devante Adams um, could stay with the team. Again, a possibility, not a probability. At the time of this taping, that still stands there. But when you look at Derek Carr goes down with the oblique, now I'm hearing from people that I trust around the NFL that teams could trade for Derek Carr if they wanted to. I'm hearing that. I also don't hear that there's much interest in a trade. That's not a slam on Derek. It's just the situation the way it is. I've not heard that from New Orleans people, but I've heard it now from a couple of people in the league that they believe if somebody wanted to go after Derek Carr, that the Saints would move on to Spencer Rattler. Doesn't mean that the Saints are shopping them or anything else. Just that's what I'm hearing from people around the league. So if they're potentially moving on from Derek, that would make that um, probably not the destination for Devante, which is still baffles my mind that that's a place Devante wants to go. And I understand right now that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But when this is all over and I write my deep dive into the divorce with Devante Adams and the Raiders, you're going to understand exactly why that's a little bit of a surprise to me. Um, the Saints may find out, okay, there really isn't a market, so let's go get Devante and try to make it work even better with Derek. That's a great possibility, but I don't anticipate him going to New Orleans till the Saints make that determination. The Jets, all right. I want to grab something here for you. Uh, I think that this will be funny, but the Jets are a team that still uh, that's still there is probability there. Um, I think the thing that sticks out most to me, at least, when I look at the Jets, is they're going to have to make a determination on what they're going to do. They fire their coach? They fire their coach, and now they have to go in and ask themselves, what are we going to do? Are we willing to make the investment in Devante? That's a big investment. Do we think Devante can come in and turn our season around with Aaron? Now, obviously, injuries to Aaron Rodgers hurt that, but it's not like, Aaron is unproductive. It's not like Aaron's not a great quarterback. But I want to get into something that I found fascinating and something that I find very interesting in my own personal opinion. And I think that you will as well. Is as Derek looks for a home, the Bills are certainly a possibility. There are other teams. I know the Chiefs would have already dealt for him if they could have gotten him. The Chiefs would love to have Devante. Would have absolutely loved to have had Devante. But when the Raiders don't want to trade him in division, which I don't blame them. There's two more games coming this year. Who wants to help the Chiefs? So I think that's a big area that just precludes them out of it. But I want to get into this. After another Jets loss, what do they do? Are they willing to say, okay, this is a team, we fired a coach early in the season because we think we're a playoff team. Let's go get Devante and bite the bullet. What do they do? Bills, I already mentioned the Bills. That's a possibility. Now, here's the other big issue. The Raiders, teams are either going to have a new deal in place with Devante, or the Raiders are going to have to pay part of that salary, essentially, which is illegal in the NFL. But if a team says, hey, we'll give you two, but you got to pay $10 million of Devante's salary, you got to pay $5 million or $6 million. He's basically paid just under $1 million a game, and there are 11 games left. So you owe him, this is a rough number. It's not that high, but you basically owe him 1.1 million. It's a little bit less. It could be, instead of, uh, 1.1 million, it could be, I mean, excuse me. Instead of basically 11 million, it could be, 10, 878 or something like that. So basically 11 million. So teams may come in and say, okay, yeah, we'll give you a two for Devante, but you got to pay 6 million of the salary. So what you're literally doing is paying $6 million for a second round pick. Or they may come in and said, okay, we'll take Devante and give you a seventh, because he's only going to play 11 games. We got a ton of money to pay, and we're probably going to end up cutting him if we can't restructure and do a long-term deal. So there's a lot of things that have to come into place here. Now, I am not a team apologist. It's not what I do. My job is to not be a cheerleader for the Raiders, nor is it my job to be a hater on the Raiders. The point is, if they keep him, they're going to owe him 11 million roughly. And if they trade him and nobody's willing to take it, since it's money you already have on the books, it's not going to hurt your salary cap. Do you just pay that money and go essentially buy a draft pick? That's a possibility. I can understand if I'm Mark Davis, I don't want to give the guy one red cent. All right. So then are you willing to just trade him for a seventh? Now, there's also teams who are very interested for the long term, but they're thinking he's going to get cut with next year's salary by somebody. So do we just wait and not have to trade for him? Here's where I'm going with all this. When I do my long form article, you're going to understand how this got to this point. I think the person that deserves to be the most angry, and I think there are a lot of people. I think AP has a right to be angry. I think Tom Telesco has a right to be angry. I think the team has a right to be angry. All of that. I think the one who has the right to be the most angry is Mark Davis. Mark Davis. And I'll get into all that, I promise, at another date. But what I think is important right now for you as a fan to know is, if they can't get what they want, do they make him come back and play? I don't think that he plays. I think his hamstring injury may hamper that. Although I think that hamstring injury could heal pretty quick with a trade. I'm not saying he's faking. I just think it could. But there's a lot of dynamics here. And if I'm Mark Davis, and I'm not, but if I'm Mark Davis, I'm pretty hurt. Then do the Raiders decide, okay, we're just going to put him on the, you know, you're not here. We're just essentially saying, move on. There's so many different angles here. And at some point, do the Raiders just say, the money's already on the books, just get rid of them? Possibility. But there are a lot of moving parts here. And there's a lot of things that have been done, and I'll give you great details, that have hurt the Raiders in their ability to trade them. I think when word leaks out that you're going to that he's on the market, it lowers his value. And we'll get into all of that in great detail. I think there's been a lot of things done here that have hurt the Raiders, and that's the situation that they're in. Do you want to just get rid of them? And you know what? We'll eat the cost just to not have him here. Or no, we're going to keep him, and he can make the decision whether or not he plays. I think this is a very bad look for the NFL. I think it's a very bad look for Devante. And I'll get into all that at another time. So literally it's just sitting in quicksand. They know what's out there. It could be done in a minute or it could be dragged on. And I think it's just the Raiders having to make a decision of what they want to do. Very fascinating to me. This is one of those incidents that you feel bad for the organization. And I've seen a lot of stuff out there attributing blame to Mark Davis, attributing blame to players, attributing blame to Antonio. I don't. I certainly can see where people feel that way, but it's not a sentiment that I share. And so, until there's something that's breaking, I don't even think that this is a situation we're going to discuss anymore. It's disappointing. I think when you get all the information about it, you're going to be disappointed. And I appreciate seeing it from the inside, how the whole situation unfolded, and um, I think it's not everybody plays or participates or is part of the National Football League for the same reasons, and that's always what you hope and want, and that's not the case. All right, moving on now. Let's talk about the distractions. Um, Couple things yesterday, and if you didn't hear the audio or watch the video of Coach Antonio Pierce's Monday presser, I think you need to. One of the things that I highly admire about Antonio Pierce is Antonio Pierce doesn't participate in coach speak. Now, are there times that I think he taps the brakes on what he says? Sure. And I think that's smart. I think anybody, whether you're a husband or a wife or a parent or you work in a company, every one of us in our life taps the brakes sometimes on what what the entirety of what we want to say is. Let's just look at the Devante Adams situation. I'd love to tell you everything right now, but I don't think it would be wise. I think it would hurt people who don't deserve. I think, and I don't think it hurts the right word. I think, yeah, I think it may hurt some people that I don't think deserve to be hurt. So we'll wait. But there, the thing about about Antonio is that even though he'll tap the brakes, he'll still tell you what he thinks. So I didn't press him in any way. Didn't have to. That's one thing I really respect about him. You don't have to do a lot of follow-up questions. If you ask Antonio Pierce a question, he's going to answer it. Now, I'm okay with if he doesn't answer it to the extent that I want, but I do appreciate when they answer the question. And so I said to him, I know you want a ball control, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you also want to be on the attack. And when you're coming out first drive of the game and it's 1st and 20 and 2nd and 18, and then you throw on 3rd down, is that really the attacking offense that you want? And he goes in and talks about, yeah, we got a penalty to start it off. We can't have penalties, which he's 100% truthful. I respect that. I had no problem with him referencing that. But then he goes, yeah, and he just, and again, I'm not quoting, but essentially, yeah, we probably should have done something a little bit different. Okay, that is monumental. Most coaches aren't going to admit that. And that's one of the reasons, and there are a multiplicity of reasons why I respect Antonio Pierce, the man. But that is a huge reason as to why I respect him. Because I think him doing that clearly sent a message. Now, Thursday, I'm going to be interviewing Luke Getzey, and I've got a few questions for him. And none of them are unfair. None of them are posting him up. He's a paid professional. He's used to it. But I've got to ask him about the thing about the offense that is nonsensical to me is that when you work this offense and the players execute it, it's a good offense. I don't think anybody that has seen this offense work effectively in 2024. I don't even care if you're Luke Getzey's biggest critic. When you've seen it work, you like it. It's got a lot of options, it's creative. Those are all great things. Those are all great things. But then they'll inexplicitly go away from it. That makes no sense to me. I mean, literally, it's nonsensical. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not the only one that feels that way. I am not the only one that feels, what are they doing? And so you want to be able, for example, with Patrick Graham's defense, okay? And we know Patrick Graham is a highly respected defensive coach. The tackling in the second half, especially late in the third and the fourth, was not good. But then when the offense went on the attack, they were not out there as much. And the time of possession creeped up. Still, there was almost a 4-minute difference. But the missed tackles when guys are exhausted, they're still pros, so it's unexcusable, not making an excuse, but it is a reality. We got to live in Realville. But we know with Patrick Graham, even when guys have made mistakes, if you looked at the defense, they were in the right position. You know what Patrick's doing. You understand what Patrick's doing. You can get frustrated when Patrick Graham's defense struggles, and that's fair, but you also see what Patrick's doing. Okay, there are times at Getzey that he does exactly what you like about this offense. This is a good offense, but it's not a good offense when it's Jekyll and Hyde. And then bam, you come out the next one and there's no attack, and you're like, what? You run them first, run it second, throw in third. Okay, predictability. Okay. It literally makes no sense for something to work and then go away from it. It just, you shake your head. So I'm going to say a couple of things here. Do the players need to execute better? Absolutely, they do. But years ago, Bobby Bowden taught me this, and I think this is going to me. I think this is going to express a lot to you. So years ago, I'm talking with Bobby Bowden. We are at the university. Um, uh, we're at. I don't know. I don't know if we were at University Hall or where we were, but we were on the campus of Michigan State. And I sat down, I had lunch with Bobby Bowden, and then spent significant time with Bobby on that day for my television program. And on that program, now here's a Hall of Fame championship coach. And one of the things that Bobby and Bowden and I talked about is he said, when I review film, I want to look and see, are guys in the right places? Is the right play called? If that's the case, that's good on coaching. He said, then I look at player execution. If player execution isn't good, then I look at what players do we have in there. That could be on coaching, putting the wrong players in. Maybe it's coaching where we've got some young guys in there and we knew that young guys make young guy mistakes. And so we're willing to eat that. Jackson Powers Johnson, Delmar, DJ, Fruit Glaze, Brock Bowers, whatever. He goes, then I look at, all right, are guys making the mistakes that have successfully made the plays in the past? If that's the case, okay, maybe they're diminishing, maybe they're injured, whatever. And he goes, but if everybody's playing bad, then I know it's on my coaches. And so Bobby really taught me, and God bless him. And And what a great man. And I appreciate him taking. I mean, I bet we spent an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes talking about judging and how, watching film and really evaluating things. When you look at, so let's use Dylan Labe, for example. All right. The guy's not had a carry. You're at a very crucial point in the game. And I understand they want to play him. I'm good with that. I think Dylan should be getting touches. And I think anyone that's made these comments, oh, Dylan Labe's trash, you're clueless. One carry. I've seen what the guy's done in practice, and I know it's just practice, but he's a rookie. Give the guy a break. Tiki Barber, there were people that wanted to run him out of New York because of what he was like early in his career. But he turned out all right. Got to give guys room to develop. So, but where he put him in, play calling for that, I mean, it was just, and you look at yourself and say, okay, Getsy, that's on you. So I do not put the demise of where this team is at 2-4 solely on the shoulders of Luke Getsy. That would be unfair. But I will tell you, he has not performed well at all. And I want you to know that's just not my opinion. I've reached out to some people in the league who I respect and asked them, hey, what do you think about? You've seen the Raiders. You've scouted the Raiders, and because maybe they're coming up on your schedule or whatever. What are your thoughts on the Raiders? And I had one guy say to me yesterday, there just doesn't seem to be any continuity. They'll be doing something. He made the comment. I don't know if you heard Ezekiel Trezevant yesterday, my co-beat writer, um, who asked a great question of AP about Alexander Madison. The guy's doing great, and then he disappears. I know you want to get everybody involved, but give me a break. That's like saying, well, my wife's been a great wife, but I'm going to probably give her a rest and go on and move on to the next one. Ridiculous. It literally makes no sense. I mean, that move in and of itself was NFL coaching malfeasance. And we asked Alexander, were you healthy? Zeke asked him in the locker room after the game, were you good? Yeah, I was good. I was ready to go. He didn't attack his coaches, but he's like, yeah, I was good. I was ready to go. All right, those types of mistakes. And here's the deal. Luke Getsy had a great career prior to the Chicago Bears. A great career. A great career. Give him all the credit in the world. Okay? There were people who were absolutely interested. Luke Getsy would have had another NFL job. I know that factually. So I want to give Luke all the appropriate credit that he deserves. He's not a guy that would have been jobless in the NFL had the Raiders not hired him. Would not have been a coordinator, but he wouldn't have been jobless. Now let's keep moving here. The Raiders' first choice was Cliff Kingsbury. That did not work out. There was one other guy that they were very interested in, but no offer was made. But they were very interested in him and Cliff. And they went with Cliff. Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce basically threw Getsy a lifeline. Now, it wasn't a lifeline because he was going to be unemployed. That's not fair, and I don't think it's fair to paint Getsy as if nobody wanted him. He was not going to get a coordinator's job, but he would have gotten another job, and he deserved it based on his pre-Chicago resume. But these guys believed in you and nobody else did. They believed in you way before anybody else did. I'm going to tell you, there is something of value in people that see you for what you can be, even when you're not. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And the Raiders saw that and gave him this opportunity. He is underperforming. Now, listen, is it a big deal to lose to Jacoby Myers? Absolutely. He's the best offensive player on this team. I said it in the offseason. He's the best one, period. Is it a big deal when you lose what Devante Adams can be when Devante Adams is locked in? Absolutely. That's fair. Is it a big deal when you have a Zamir White trying to adjust to a new scheme? Yep, that's all of that's fair. None of those are excuses. But guess what? This offense has demonstrated it can do it. So when it doesn't, it's not about excuses. Everybody in the National Football League, everybody in the National Football League has injuries and has losses. You suck it up, Buttercup. Getsy wanted Gardner. He got him. Didn't work. It did for times. I don't think Getsy helped Gardner. I don't think he helped Gardner at all. Is there any of us that truly think that Aiden O'Connell was helped by Getsy? No. Does anyone think that Getsy helped Gardner? No. There were times. And so there has to be better production from the offensive coordinator. He has a proven track record that he can do this. It wasn't like he's never done anything. And so it's up to him to perform better. If he doesn't, at some point, and this is an AP call. It's not a Hondo call. At some point, though, AP is going to have to say, okay, we got to do something different because your play calling is not working. We know the system can work. We've seen it. And I'm using their voice. I'm talking like I'm AP. But it's not working with you. Then does he go to an Edgar Bennett? That Edgar Bennett was the guy last year that Champ Kelly was really debating between AP and Edgar to take over at the firing point. Edgar Bennett is a terrific football mind. A lot of people thought Edgar should have gotten a shot at the OC this time. I think he would have been a great option, but then you go with a rookie guy. Nothing wrong with that, but there's going to be some learning curve there. Do you go to a Scott Philbin? Scott Turner. What about a Joe Philbin? Those are all things that you have to think about. Those are all things that you have to have a plan, because with 11 games left, you just can't sit here and play tiddlywinks with your season. At some point, fish or cut bait. With the current quarterbacking situation. Now, AP said something else yesterday that I thought was a big deal. I believe it was another question by Ezekiel Trezevan. If it wasn't, I apologize to whoever the questioner was. But they're asking questions about Aiden. And they asked about, it may have been Adam Hill for the Las Vegas Review-Journal or Paul Gutierrez from ESPN. I apologize again. Could have been Vic Tafer from The Athletic, but if it wasn't Zeke, I'm trying to give credit to the guys because it was just a fantastic question. Did you see from Aiden what you wanted to see? And he talked about Aiden coming out that first drive, and then obviously he addressed the turnover, but talked about we know who Aiden is. I think that was a lot. That was hey, we know what we get from Aiden. I think this team understands that unless the last 11 games Aiden takes off, that they probably see his role in a backup role. I don't think that's being unfair, and I consider Aiden a friend. Well, quite frankly, I have a great relationship with Gardner too. So this is not a slam on either one, but I believe that the organization feels like with both guys, if things don't change from where they sit right now, I think they feel like, okay, we got a couple of quality backups. That's what I think. Now, one of them could really step out, and I would love to see that because they're both terrific men. So the organization knew there really wasn't a quarterback that they could go up and get in the top 4. I mean, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, the Raiders should have moved up." I told you the Commanders were not moving. The Patriots were not moving. The teams ahead of them were not moving. There were other quarterbacks that they thought, okay, this may be good, but they weren't worth that pick. And none of them have been balanced out. So we knew, and I talked about this. You can go back and find the podcast this summer. Okay, if neither quarterback works out, then they're absolutely better with a Brock Bowers, and it makes it even more of an attractive job moving forward. So, do you have the quarterback probably right now that you see as your future franchise quarterback? No. Are the Raiders all in looking, whether it's free agency or the draft, for their next quarterback? Yes. Would they love for one of these guys to emerge the last 11 games and prove them wrong? Yes. But they're still doing their due diligence. They're still prepping. But now the question is, what do they do? I think you certainly have to keep on the table. If Getsy's performance doesn't improve, you're going to have to make a change. I don't think that's a secret. And AP can't go down. If I'm AP and I'm the head coach, I'm not going to be stubborn. If something doesn't work, I move. And that's AP. AP is not a Josh McDaniels is going to go watch a film, go back to work, go watch a film, go back to work, go back, watch a film. No, no, we're going to fix this. I'm a winner. Let's go. So that's the situation there. Okay, now there's another element to this. Tom Brady, and again, I'm taping this early in the morning on Tuesday, is expected to get his 10% ownership approved by the NFL today. So if you're watching it later in the day, it's already happened, but before, they said is the total expectation. And he's going to have a voice in this. And I'm going to tell you something. He should. I know Raider Nation hates the Patriots. Okay? I respect that. I understand rivalries. I cover sports for a living. That's why I wore this. I'm a Michigan State Spartan. I would root against the Michigan Wolverines in checkers. I get it. I understand it. You may not believe this, but it's 100% true. I remember my son Duffy, Shane. His nickname's Duffy after Duffy Doherty, and his kindergarten teacher, Miss Wolf, and she spelled it Wolfe. So we call his mama and who was friends with her, and I was friends with her too, but we all called her Woofy. And he was not allowed to use blue or gold crayons or markers. We just don't use blue and gold. So, and one day I think they're coloring a duck or coloring a fish, and he's like, I don't use blue and gold. And she laughed because she knew us. But I get rivalries. I understand it. But if you look, Bill Belichick wasn't Bill Belichick without Tom Brady. Josh McDaniels wasn't Josh McDaniels without Tom Brady. The whole success in the orbit of Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So you don't bring in somebody to just be a silent guy who knows this game. Now, he may prove to be an utter failure. A lot of guys go from being a great player that maybe aren't a great owner. Michael Jordan, Irvin, I think he was, did okay with I don't think he was a bad owner with the Lakers, but he certainly wasn't a good coach. But I think he's got to have a voice. All right. So then all of a sudden you have Tom Brady, who was around a lot of practices last year, watching the Raiders practice when AP was winning the job, watching things closely. I think all of those are germane. And I'm going to tell you right now, the one guy who should be the most disappointed with the Devante Adams situation and the most disappointing with this team through 6 games is Mark Davis. Mark Davis. Mark Davis has done nothing but try to make this team a winner. And if I'm Mark Davis, you better believe Tom Brady's going to have a big voice in my head. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So that's where the present situation of the Raiders sits right now. Now, I want to address a couple other things. I've had tons of people contact me, radio stations, media guys. Hey, what about Max Crosby being traded? Most of it's been to the Lions, but to other places. Max Crosby, and this is not like a Devante answer. Max Crosby loves the Raiders. He wants to be a Raider. Now, if the Raiders, somebody was to make a stupid offer. Okay, I mean, somebody asked me the other day, would the Raiders trade Max Crosby for 2 firsts and Hendon Hooker with the Lions? Okay, first of all, I don't think the Lions are making that trade, number 1. Number 2, I don't think the Raiders would make that trade. He is still not in his prime and one of the best edge rushers in the game. Do I think they would look at it? Sure, I think they would look at it. And every good business should. But you have your best player in Max Crosby who sets the standard for your organization. Sets the standard. And he's not even I talked about this last year. It's not like Devante who's either at the peak or coming down a little bit. He's still ascending. He's an elite player. He's that guy, that rare guy that you get that is massively huge in the organization. I know this, and everyone knows this. This isn't a secret. I have a tremendous relationship with Max. I have no doubts if he wanted to be gone that I would know it. And I'm telling you, I think it's extremely big compliment to Max Crosby when everybody talks about let's trade for Max, let's trade for Max. If I'm Max Crosby and I know you may not think this because you don't know him. Max Crosby doesn't have an arrogant bone in his body. He wants to be great and he's willing to put more than his best effort into being great. That's not arrogance. That's commitment. It's commitment. And if I'm Max, I'm looking at that like, you know what? Wow. That tells me I am keeping the standard I'm trying to get to. It doesn't mean he wants to go. Max Crosby is a wealthy man. He's a famous man. Max Crosby has the attention of every room he walks into. But he loves Rachel. He has no desire to trade Rachel in for a new wife because he's committed to her and he loves her and what she's done for him and the teammate in life that she's been for him. I mean, I care about Max. He's a friend. And I'll tell you what, when you're somebody's friend, you love it when they have a spouse that is just perfect for them. One of my friends, Tom, my financial advisor, said to me the other day, he goes, I love that you're married to Shannon. He said, because him and I have been friends for, I don't know, probably close to 35 years. And he said, she's the perfect wife for you. And I agree with him. And so Max isn't looking to get out of Vegas. He loves this organization. And I'm going to tell you another thing. He loves Mark Davis. It is not you're my boss, you sign the paycheck, you giving me exponential wealth. He loves Mark Davis. And that's a big deal. And so I think when you, as a Raider, when you hear those compliments, the other day in J Lot, a man came up to me because he got to meet Shannon, and he goes, "Wow, your wife is beautiful." I wasn't mad at him. That was a great compliment. My wife is beautiful, and I told him, I said, "You know what's amazing is she looks good too, because inside she's even prettier." When somebody compliments your family or your kids, it doesn't matter. It says, "Boy, you have a beautiful home." Thank you. People calling wanting to trade for Max Crosby, Raider Nation, that tells you, wow, he is that attractive. You're sitting here today with a very limited trade market and not a ton of interest in Devante Adams. And probably everybody in the league wants Max. Facts. So, how does the team now move on? I think you got to see an upgrade from Luke Getzey. We know that Luke can do it, and now that needs to be demonstrated. That's just being factual. I'm not sitting here saying they got to fire him. No, he now has to perform to the standard that he's displayed. If he doesn't do that, then you have to look at other things. But I don't think that's something they have to do right now. And I'm going to tell you, I like Luke. There's not one thing about him I don't like. And I'll tell you another thing. The players don't dislike him, and the coaches don't dislike. There is literally none of this personal with Luke. None. No. I think Luke, I won't get into that, but none of it's personal with him. I think everybody would like to see him succeed because everybody likes him. So I'm just saying that in case anybody thinks there's any personality, because there isn't with this. It just has to be better. I think player execution, but with the offense performing better, I think you're going to see a lot of the tackling issues get addressed. You're 2-4 with some, the Bengals maybe aren't the Bengals that we thought they would be. Maybe. We know the Chiefs are who we thought the Chiefs were. We know that. The Rams are struggling. There's a chance here. There's a chance. Season's far from over. But there comes a point when you just have to dig yourself up with your bootstraps. I remember when I was very young, I got my first credit card coming out of college, and my dad had taught me about credit. I knew about credit, and I'll never forget. I had $800 on an Amoco credit card, a gas card that I owed, and I hate having debt. I am not a debt guy. My father, thanked God, really taught his children financial sensibility and how to run our lives making financial sense. And so I was 19 years old, and I mean, I just felt overwhelmed with this $800 Amoco credit card. And I just determined this isn't right. I know why I got it, but I got to dig deep and get this thing paid off. And I grabbed an extra part-time job till I got that thing paid off. I just had to grab my bootstraps and pull myself up. That's where this Raider team is right now. That's how they're going to navigate through this. This is not on the fans. This is not on Mark Davis. This is on the guys that walk out that tunnel together, and it's all on them, and they got to fix it. And I'm going to go another step. I don't think it's on Tom Telesco. It's on the guys that walk out that tunnel, and they've got to fix it. Now, real quick, how about my guy, Delmar DJ Glaze? Wow. I watched that film again after the game, and I mean, there's my guy, Delmar DJ Glaze. And by the way, I got to tell you this, and I have his permission to tell you. Zamir White and I are horse guys, outdoor country boys. It's just what Zamir are. I mean, Zamir and I the other day were going through our phones, showing each other pictures of our horses and deer from our trail cams, and so Zamir and I are two totally different sized people. I mean, he's super tiny and looks like granite. I'm super big and look like a tub of lard, but um we're both country boys, and so we're talking about our horses and hunting and fishing and chickens and all that kind of stuff. And his locker's right next to Delmar DJ Glaze. So I'm sitting there talking to, and we're laughing about our horses. So you know, Zeke likes the fast horses. I'm a big guy. I ride draft horses. My wife rides quarter horses and paint horses. I ride paints and drafts, and of course Dexter ponies. And he's telling me what he likes, and we're laughing because I explained to him how I love the big feet because I'm a big guy. I love the big sure-footedness of a nice big draft horse, the big Belgians and Clydesdales and Percherons. And I asked him, "Have you ever ridden a mule?" I love to hunt. When I hunt on horseback, I like to hunt on mules. And I said to uh, Zamir, "Have you ever ridden a mule?" And he's like, "Yeah, I love riding mules." And we were talking about how he likes to use the fast horses. I don't like to run my horses. I'm too big. I just don't enjoy running a horse. Even when I was young, I never really did. I love to ride them for hours and hours. Don't like to run them. But he does. He likes the smaller, compact, like him, the Zamir White horse. So we're sitting there joking, and I leaned over and I go, Delmar DJ Glaze over here, Zamir. The way this rookie's playing, he's not like you. He's not going to run down the field 100 yards for a touchdown with his lightning speed, but he's like a big, sure-footed mule, man. He's not going anywhere. He's like that old hymn of the faith. I shall not be moved. And oh man, we got laughing. He goes, yeah, he's a mule. And I looked at Zamir and he looked at me and we looked at DJ and I'm like, that is a great nickname for Delmar DJ Glaze, the mule. Just Mr. Sure-footed. I'm not going anywhere. And oh man, Delmar thought that was great. And so I even said to him the other day in the locker room, I said, hey, before I mention on my podcast, that Zamir and I kind of gave you the nickname the Mule. Are you all right with that? And he goes, yeah, I am. So, I mean, that guy, how good did he? And even JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson. I mean, he's out there. You're going to get the same with Dylan. Rookies make rookie mistakes, and you don't have to like it, but you got to accept it. The other day, Dexter gets in bed with his mom and I. And he's in bed with us for maybe 50, he wakes up early. Boom, he fills his diaper. Stunk. Woke us both up. Well, I'm not mad at him. But if my sophomore in college son jumps in the middle of bed with us and poops his pants, I'm not going to be happy. Growth. So you look at these rookies. Brock Bowers, many people think is already the best tight end in the National Football League. A lot of reasons to be excited about the youth on this team. Listen, y'all know I love Thayer Mumford now. Two young tackles playing well, but man, Delmar DJ the Mule Glaze, man. I'm so excited about that kid. First of all, I was so excited about him at the Senior Bowl because I mean, I had more than one team telling me, "Whoa, that Delmar Glaze now he looked a little rough those first few days." But and when the Raiders nabbed him, y'all will remember. You can go back and watch the videos. I was so excited the Raiders got him. He is a great player, great kid. Great kid. I am. Someone said to me, man, you're on that Delmar train. Oh, I'm riding it, baby. I'm riding that train. That kid's got a big future. And he's a salt of the earth kid. So you look at these rookies, guys, Raider Nation. There are a lot of reasons to be frustrated with this team in this season right now, and you deserve to be with all of it. I've tried to address the issues fairly, but there are also a lot of reasons to be excited. The future looks bright. You got a lot of young players. You got a lot of good pieces on this team. This is not a team that's a piece of trash. They have some weak areas. They got some areas they got to fix. Nobody is saying they don't. But there's a lot of reasons here. A lot of them. Man, I don't even know how long we went. Wow, almost 50 minutes. Dear Lord. But I wanted to get into all this. I wanted to talk about where the latest is on the Devante. Why does it seem like nothing's happening? Well, the Raiders are going to have to make some decisions. Had to talk about Getsy. Had to talk about player performance, but I also had to talk about coaching. And then I wanted to talk about there's a lot of bright spots in this team, and I wanted to address the Max. Hey, thank you for taking time with me every day. To all of our members, don't forget we have a members only tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow with that as well. But stay with us. I appreciate all of you. You guys have been nothing but an incredible blessing into our life. And from Shannon, Dexter, and I, we appreciate you. God bless y'all. Have a good day.